related dentistry to it being boring, dry, not fun, way too serious. And then I feel like growing up to two parents who were dentists, especially my father, I was able to see the lighter side of dentistry, that you could have fun, you could make jokes, you could put on this amazing personality. You don't have to be that serious.
Hey everyone, producer Brian here. Today is August 27th, and before we get into this episode, I would like to wish Daniel, my brother from another mother, a very happy birthday today. Danny, wishing you all the love, health, and happiness. May you have another year filled with amazing opportunities and prosperity. Love you, man. Here we go.
What's up, guys? This is Dr. Daniel Rubinshtein, your host of The Crown Prince of Brooklyn. I'm excited for the next episode. This episode is going to be a very beautiful, unique, and very near and dear to my heart episode. I will be talking about my family, who I love and adore so much. We love each other, but we also have our days, we have our moments, and I would love to share with you the character and spirit of each and every single one of them. Let me bring it back. Let me bring it back to the two people who started this legacy of dentistry in our family. It's my parents, but more so my grandparents. My grandparents are the ones that came to this country, went straight to working hard with their hands, physical labor, did whatever they could so that both my parents, from my mom's side and my dad's side, had an education, had a better future. My mom and my father both saw how hard their respective parents and grandparents worked when they first came to this country, and they knew that they needed to have a better life. So they didn't know each other at the time when they first immigrated to this country. And long and behold, they both met in NYU undergrad. They were in chemistry class. My father's dream was to be a dentist for some weird reason. And my mother's dream was to be a medical doctor, just like her mother. Her mother was a medical doctor, still a medical doctor. But when they first met and they fell in love, and this is as cliche as it gets, in physics class in NYU undergrad, my father convinced my mother not to become a medical doctor, but instead follow his dream and his path and his vision. And my mother, being the sweetest human being in the world, who loves her man, her husband, said, "Of course, I will follow in your footsteps." And they both became dentists. My father is more of the businessman. My father is more of the, he thinks macro, similar to what I do. My mother is this gentle angel who really pays attention to every detail and relationships and things like that. So I have the best of both worlds. And so they both came together and started this journey of becoming dentists. All right, so let me now narrow in a little bit about both my parents. My father, and for those that have come to visit me in this office, have come across my father. My father is one of the first people that you'll meet and be greeted by in this office. I call him the photographer. Even though he's a dentist, he loves photography. Going back to his childhood, his dream was always to be involved in photography. He's mastered that craft. He loves, I remember going on vacations, he would bring this massive camera. It didn't even matter how big the camera was. He wanted to make sure he was able to capture the most beautiful memories. And he has a very good eye for that as well. Because it not only requires pressing a button, hoping to get a good quality photo, it requires you to really understand the technology behind it. And as technology evolved, he always did the best research to get the nicest and better cameras to get a better quality image. So knowing that my father loves photography, the first thing I did when I joined the team, I was like, you will be the official photographer of the office. What does that mean? So right behind me in this room, we have a photo studio where we do the before and after photos. So when a patient first comes to this office, we do these photos from every single angle, from the full face to up close. And my father is the one that's doing it. What's funny is that most people realize that it's my father later on down the road. And they're like, who's that amazing man that's taking my photos? He was so funny. We had a conversation for like an hour talking about life and this and that. I was like, that's my father. They're like, no way, we get it now. It's amazing. So my father is really the first person that you'll be interacting with in this office, and probably the most important because he's going to start opening you up to smiling. And many of my patients feel uncomfortable and vulnerable when they smile. So before we even do any type of smile makeover, we want to document that. And he helps document those special moments so that my team and I could do the very best in creating the most beautiful, stunning smile makeover for the patients. My father his sense of humor is one of a kind. He could interact with absolutely any type of human, and they all fall in love with him. And I truly believe that it stems from my grandfather. My grandfather, when he first came to this country, he went straight to work in a produce store. And in the produce store, he had all different ethnicities. And I remember as a kid, I would go visit my grandfather in the produce store, and everyone was like, your grandfather is the best. Your grandfather is the man. Your grandfather. And I was like, I wonder why they're all saying that about him. And as I saw the way that my grandfather interacted with all these other ethnicities, races, people that are not like him, he would give the most respect to each and every single one of them, as if they were his best friend. I mean, when I saw him doing that, I realized that it's about love, it's about relationships, and I saw the feedback that he got by being his real self and loving other people. So I think that my father and I both got that beautiful character and beautiful way of living from my grandfather, David Rubinshtein. A lot of people go to the dentist because they're like, we heard that the dentist sometimes can give you laughing gas. Having my father in this office and involved with my patients, you don't need laughing gas. Just have a conversation with them. Sometimes I could even hear my patients laughing so hard with my father when they're taking those photos, like 2 floors down from where he's taking those photos. So, it's about really tapping into being authentic. My father loves people. He loves putting a smile on people's faces. And it really is a blessing to have him part of this team. So I remember growing up, my friends' parents would always be like, oh, your parents are dentists? Oh, no, my dentist is scary. My dentist is this. My dentist is that. Even listening to like podcast, not back then there were no podcasts. So it was a cassette you put into the car, and then you hear this dry voice saying, hello, welcome to the new episode. And it was so dry. And I feel like everyone related dentistry to it being boring, dry, not fun, way too serious. And then I feel like growing up to 2 parents who were dentists, especially my father, I was able to see the lighter side of dentistry, that you could have fun. You could make jokes. You could put on this amazing personality. You don't have to be that serious. My father, being this visionary man who got my mother out of medical school and into dental school to become a dentist, obviously has this beautiful vision, which he created and executed. But when I first came to this practice, I realized that we're like in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out a way to get patients, because I wasn't going to just work on my parents' patients. I wanted to build a name for myself. I wanted to build a certain type of clientele that I felt comfortable working with, that understood my personality and all that. So when I first started, social media was on the come up. So I wanted to use that as a leverage to possibly gain new clients and patients. For those that don't know, you kind of have to be always on your phone when you're involving social media. The one thing that my father never understood was you cannot be on your phone and working at the same time. So every time he saw me on the phone, it frustrated him, because I think he thought that I wasn't working and I was slacking. And we were butting heads often because of that. Ladies and gentlemen, it was often, everyday type of thing. Get off your phone, get off your phone. And I'm like, I'm doing what I need to do for the office. But because you don't see results right away, that's really the time where a person has to think within himself and say, is this worth continuing? And you have to really believe in yourself. Otherwise, of course, my father is right. I'm on my phone. There's really no results from that early on, and I should just give up. But I really knew that this is the new wave, and this will definitely return in 100 folds. And it took a little bit of time. So finally, when we started to get our first patient from social media, and back then it was Meerkat, and then there was Snapchat, and then there was Instagram, and then there was these other platforms, TikTok. So slowly, one patient coming in, another patient coming in, and another patient coming in. My father's like, so what else is going on that social media app? And what else? He started being curious, and he started trying to involve himself in it. So for those that are working with their parents, the new generation will always have these ideas. You just have to be true to yourself, work really hard, and really execute it properly. I get a lot of people asking me always like, are you closer to your mom or to your father? We work together. And, everyone always wants to know who am I, always leaning towards. And the answer is, honestly, I love both of them. And this is not a political answer. I love both of them with my whole heart. I'm close to both of them the same way. In a sense, my father is more, he understands me in the macro vision, the business side, the grand scheme of things. So I'm close to him in that respect. And then my mother, who is more of a micro, detail-oriented person, I will go to her for those particular questions, topics, interactions. So I'm close to both of them pretty much the same way, same amount, but in different ways. My mother is the organizer in the family. She loves organizing. She understands health to the fullest. She's about food. She's about relationships. She's about mental health. She's about travel. So anything in regards to that topic, for instance, Mom, I'm not feeling well. I'll go towards my mother. I'll have a conversation with my mother. What do I need to do? The second I start coughing, my mother is the one that reacts the fastest. So in terms of health, she's an unbelievably educated woman when it comes to nutrition and health. So she would guide me when it comes to that. If I'm talking about working out, if I'm dealing with something that's uncomfortable in my body, I'll go to my mother. If I'm planning to go to the restaurant, I'll talk to my mother. If I'm dealing with travels, I'll be dealing with my mother. If there's anything specific in cosmetic dentistry, it's only my mother and no one else. Her and I really have this beautiful relationship in the office. When it comes to cosmetic dentistry, I have her a part of pretty much all my cases. And we really work together so well. And she started seeing my vision many years ago, and she helped develop that vision and put it into fruition and make it into a master craft. So I dedicate that all to her. My father is more of like, if I have an opportunity to go on a radio show, a podcast, if there is a business opportunity, if there's a certain celebrity, if something goes viral, if there's a transaction of any sort, if I'm buying something, I'll go to my father for that. He is a businessman. He's a brilliant man of that nature. So he would give me advice in that world. My father, believe it or not, for everyone that meets him and sees his personality and sees how bubbly and fun and he's basically a jokester within the team setting, he's the toughest person on the team because he knows that things need to be aligned. Things can't get out of control. And he's a number guy. He's the one that pays the bills. He understands the crazy freaking overhead dentistry has, especially to have this quality of an office. The overhead is just ridiculous. So, he understands that, and he's less lenient with the team than obviously with the patients. So my father will hold people accountable. He will make sure that each team member is responsible. And if they're not responsible, then he will have those tough conversations. It's like, why did you let this, slip through the cracks? Why this? Why that? So obviously, people would view him as a tough person compared to maybe someone like my mother that will allow things to kind of go so that there's not so much turbulence. But if two people were like my mother, I don't think the business would be as successful. So it's always good to have someone that understands the numbers and someone that understands the opposite side of numbers, whatever that is. Not that I'm wasteful, but I like new things all the time. especially when I'm working with patients doing these makeovers day in and day out. There's some things that should not be thrown out right away after using one time, and I just tend to, gloves. I leave the room because I can't sit in one place for a long time, and many of my patients know this now, that I need to take mini breaks, walk out of the room, refresh my eyes, refresh my mind, take a deep breath, come back in, keep working. And I go through pairs of gloves like it's nothing. I go through pairs of masks like it's nothing. So we're at a time now that's still kind of post-pandemic that it takes things forever to get. Prices are through the roof with every little cotton roll and glove. I mean, these are the minor things. Forget about like the lab fees and the teammates and this and that. So, he keeps me in check in that sense, because I sometimes feel like I'm in La La Land, and I need to be brought down sometimes. So he helps do that. All right, so now let's talk about mom, who is, like I mentioned before, to me, like this angel on earth, who I think anyone that comes across her is blessed, is lucky, and she forever changes their lives. So what qualities did I get from my mother? Definitely the heart that she wears on her sleeve. How much of a compassionate person she is for people. How much she gives without thinking of anything in return. I think the attention to detail, the work ethic, work your ass off, and everything else will work itself out. The love for caring and giving is like probably the biggest thing. I'm very lucky because I get to work by my mother's side every single day. So if you do ask her who's her favorite son, she might, actually, I don't know. She might say not me, or she could say me. It's a 50-50, because sometimes I put her through. Oh, this is when we butt heads. I got it. When I'm here till 12 o'clock, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, my mother is here till 12 o'clock. So sometimes I'll put my family through things that require hours and hours of attention and effort and so forth. But they are right by my side. And I think that's why I'm able to accomplish what I do, is because they're there with me. I think that if my family was not there with me, I wouldn't want to work this hard. I think it gives me another reason to push. The next character is not even a character. He's my brother, but he's definitely has a very specific type of personality. And that brother is Dr. Jeffrey Rubinshtein. He's the second middle son. He also, similar to my mother, wanted to become a plastic surgeon, wanted to get into the medical field. And just like what my father did to my mother, I did to Dr. Jeffrey. I was able to convince him out of it. And I convinced him out of it because I knew and I truly believed in what Dr. Jeffrey's strengths are. And I knew that by him joining the team, we could help each other to the fullest maximum potential. So Dr. Jeffrey became a periodontist, which I believe is a plastic surgeon of the mouth. It's like the gum surgeries. And he's so detail oriented, which I think he takes from my mother as well. He's so detail oriented. The gum surgeries that he does is second to none. There are people in this industry, and I'm not just saying it because he's my brother, because I'm very tough on my brother, believe it or not. I hold the standard to be super, super high. There are people in the industry that have been doing gum surgeries, periodontal work for many, many years. They don't come close to what Jeffrey could do, Dr. Jeffrey could do. I see the results. The way that he cares for the patients, the amount of time that he goes above and beyond, even though it will cost him more money, he'll go above and beyond because it's the right thing to do. Based on the research, that's the right thing to do. And the results are seamless. The results are amazing. And by him doing his part, I get to do smile makeovers at the highest level. Dr. Jeff and I, we work very, very well. But there's also times where we don't see eye to eye. And it's really, the amount of effort that I put into this craft and this office. Like, for instance, let's say there's a patient that can only come in at 6 o'clock. And I'm like, we need to complete this project. We need to complete the smile makeover. He'll say, nope. I think he understands work-life balance a little bit better than I do. He really focuses on his mental health and himself. And if someone comes too late, he won't see them. Versus, I would see that patient and I would execute it and finish that smile makeover. So we sometimes butt heads on that. He's very micro vision. I'm very macro vision, but I think it works because he's very nitpicky and I'm very big picture-esque. I mean, when we were younger, we would fight all the time. This isn't just, oh, Dr. Jeff and myself, we got lucky in this relationship. We worked our asses off to get to where we are today in our relationship. Younger selves, two boys full of testosterone. I mean, we wanted to rip our heads off. We would fight all the time. We would play sports, hit each other. We would wrestle. I mean, God bless my mom. She's working, and then all of a sudden she gets a phone call from the house or from the teacher. Oh, your boys got in a fight, or this or that. I can't imagine my mother having to hear this on a daily basis while she's working and trying to, put food on the table. It's really difficult. I don't know how she did it, honestly, guys. Because if I'm working on a patient and someone distracts me, I'll get so annoyed and pissed off. My mother was distracted for sure all the time because of her boys. And also we have the youngest brother, Brandon, who fell into the picture, and we would all fight and wrestle together. And can't tell you how crazy we were at some point. I don't even know how we even grew out of this. This is, for those that are interested in having boys, this is what to expect. High functioning boys. We would literally throw like dumbbells at each other, create holes in the wall. My parents would come home after a hard day of work, and work the craziest hours, 12, 14, 16 hours. They'll come home with holes in the wall, with the house a mess, with, Jeffrey or Brandon crying and this and that. So as kids, we would wrestle. We would be turbulent. And it took effort. It takes effort to build a relationship with your family. It doesn't come easy, but as long as you have a vision and love for each other, you can get through that period of time. I am about a year and 10 months, around that time, a year and 10 months older than Jeff. So we were actually very close in age. And I think because we were close in age, it creates that competition within each other. And competition is good and bad at the same time, but I think competition is really, really good. It allows you to try to become the best version of yourself, outbetter your brother. But at the end of the day, there's no losers here. We're both winners, and we both work really, really hard. We always fought about the silliest things. It's not like we ever fought about a girlfriend or a friend. It was none of that. It was like, you looked at me the wrong way. Let's start wrestling. It was the silliest thing, the silliest thing. Looking back, there's nothing that could be changed except the fact that I could teach my future kids how to act maybe a little differently to their siblings. I think Dr. Jeffrey, similar to me, is closer to both my parents in their respective ways. From the business side, my father. From the emotional standpoint, my mother. If there was something going on with the patient, I think he would go to my mother first and then my father. But we have the best of both worlds, so we're able to really have this close connection to both our parents. When I first graduated, honestly, I didn't think that I was going to be working alongside my parents. I was like, maybe I want to open up something in Miami. I had an opportunity in Los Angeles, but I took one opportunity in another office, not my parents' office, in another office on the Upper East Side. I learned a lot, but I realized that the culture is not what I'm looking for. And culture is very, very important in any organization, any business that you're building. So for me, I was like, if I'm going to work alongside my parents, I need to build it the way that I see fit. There's a lot of, relationships where parents and kids are in the business, but the parents don't allow their kids to lead. I'm very fortunate that my parents both, not only my father, but my mother as well, gave me the green light to do whatever I needed to do to make this as successful as possible. If they didn't give me that ability, I wouldn't be able to work alongside them. For instance, I came in, and imagine this. My parents built this office now over 30 years ago. The waiting area, when I first graduated and I joined my parents, the waiting area honestly looked like a old diner. It had this like pink wraparound furniture couch that was attached to the wall. Then everything was Formica. When you walked in, there was when you walk into this hospital, like you see this front desk. They had a front desk with all the patient's charts in the back. You had these three people that didn't even speak English at the time, or chose not to speak English and just want to speak Russian. And I'm like, this is not my vision of high end. This is not my vision of making this an experience that people will never forget. My parents are unbelievable practitioners, but it's more than that. I truly believe that the experience revolves not only around the doctors, but it also revolves around the experience of the office, from the smells to the taste, to the vision, to the sounds. I wanted to incorporate all those senses when a person comes into my practice. So the first thing I wanted to do was knock down the waiting area and revamp it in the vision that I had. And it's easier said than done. I could just say, hey, I want to do that. But the cost of it is ridiculous. And not believing in yourself, or having parents that are like, why would we spend $500,000, $1 million into a waiting area and nothing in return will come from that? It's not a good investment. But because my parents believe in me, always have, they let me do what I believed was best. And we did it. And it took time, it took a lot of money, and I needed to make sure that this was worthwhile. And that's where I think social media came about. For me to describe how beautiful of a job and experience it is in this office, I can't verbalize it. I needed to showcase it. So that's where social media came to play. I was able to use Snapchat at the time, record the experiences in the office for people to be like, oh, wow, my dentist doesn't do that. My dentist doesn't have them. My medical doctor doesn't have that. How come? Why don't we go and see what that experience is all about? Let me try to describe the vibe now compared to the diner look that we had back in the day. When you walk in, there's music playing. Music that is of my choice and my team's choice, but it's a special energy that you get from the music. We have a special scent that was created for us that goes throughout the vents of the office. It's a continuous smell. When you walk in, you feel that smell, you smell it, you hear the sounds, and the visual is beautiful. You have a green wall. You have this onyx stone that is like a concierge when you walk into a restaurant. You have this unbelievable friendly face greeting you, not saying, what insurance do you have? But it's more like, welcome. Then we give the client a menu to see if they're hungry. And if they're hungry, what would you like to eat? Because, I get hangry, and I know that people get hangry as well. And I wanted to take that away from that experience. Then you sit in a room that doesn't look like a diner, but it looks like someone's living room, that you're coming to visit a friend. So it becomes more of like, I'm visiting a friend versus I'm having this dental procedure. And not only that, but the people you come across in this office, they're all very special. Each individual human being that I hire is based on personality over everything else. So you'll meet people that are friendly, special, maybe not have been in dentistry for many years, but they have been in the world of greeting people, meeting people, servicing people. I truly believe that's why we're on this earth, is to service people and to help people. Each individual on my team sees that, understands that, and you have that common energy. So let's say I replace, or there's a teammate that needs to be replaced for whatever reason. Person has to leave work, move out of the country, whatever the case is. Whoever we bring on the team will have the same energy. So no matter what year you come to this office, you'll have that same energy. When I first started, my mother and my father had such a beautiful name in the industry, and they still do. And most of their clients, though, were local. They were in the Bensonhurst area. They were in the Brooklyn area. Some of them, once in a while you have someone flying in from out of state through referral. But now it's like patients that are coming to see us is because they did their research and they know that our team will do everything in our power to help them transform their smile. So they're flying in routinely from all around the country, all around the world. And that's why, for me, the experience is the most important. It's really beautiful because we still do get neighbors coming in, understanding who we are, but we also get all these unique and special people, whether they're athletes coming before their season starts, whether they're, actors, whether they're garbage men. It doesn't matter. These people have done the research and realized that we are their perfect fit. Just to put things in perspective, what I did was nothing beyond believing in myself and believing in what I want to create with my family and my team. The worst thing that you could do, and this is for any listener, whether you're in the dental world or outside of any other industry, the worst thing you could do is really copy someone else's energy and vibe, thinking that you're going to get the same result. It's not going to happen. What I put together in this office is based on just my heart, my vision, my team's vision, my family's vision, our mind, our taste buds. So when our patients come here, it's super authentic. It isn't like, oh, it feels out of place. It's super authentic to who we are. So if you guys are wanting to build a business and a successful business, be authentic to who you and your team are. What is your agenda? What's your vision? What type of people do you want working in your office? Because it's not just about how good you are or how good the product is. It's how good the people that are selling your product. It's how good the people that are holding your product display it and talk about it and their energy, because I'm all about energy. Most of our new patients comes from either social media or word of mouth. And once you get started with a certain clientele, let's say you're an athlete, a basketball player, and one of the basketball players, come to this office. If his teammate gets hurt or gets elbowed in the mouth and chips his tooth, then he will refer him to come to us as well. So by you giving it your all and treating each patient like VIPs, whether they're an athlete or they're a garbage man, it doesn't matter your profession. People are people. We recently just had I think the most beautiful review. Can I read it to you guys? This young lady came for a consultation, drove maybe 2-3 hours to get here, and this was her experience. So I was floating in my pool, imagining the beautiful smile I was just shown yesterday. I cannot express what a wonderful experience I have had with this. Cannot find words to express. It isn't a dental office. It isn't a, hey, I'm going to recreate who you are. It's a place where you're welcomed and hard conversations are had to make the smile you have always had come true. Angie is absolute, beautiful inside and out. So yeah, you can get caught up in the hype of scrolling, seeing this doctor with so many superstars that go there. But honestly, he was just so gracious, so humble, and his aura was what got me. He treated me with the same respect and admiration that I have seen on Instagram. We have just began my journey, and I'm so thrilled to see my original smile once again. I would highly recommend this amazing place to anyone that is truly looking for that special moment experience. Like, it's bringing tears to my eyes because at the end of the day, I don't care where you're located. If you don't give the best experience and if you don't give a person your undivided attention and be humble about it, you won't be successful anywhere. You don't have to be in Central Park South. If you're in New York, or Central Park South is a very high-end location, but you could be anywhere in Nebraska, in the corner of nowhere. Give a human being the best experience. Give him your all. Treat them like your family. You'll win. So finally, I saved the best for last. My youngest brother, who's also taller than everyone in the family, is like 6'4", 6'5", really big kid. My youngest brother, Brandon Rubinshtein, not Dr. Brandon Rubinshtein, the only one that's not a doctor in the family. It's funny because when we're younger, I'm like, Brandon, do you mind passing over the apple juice, orange juice? And his hands would shake as he was pouring the juice. And I think my whole family just realized, okay, he's not capable to become a dentist. And he also did not want to be a dentist. He thought that the four of us, the other four besides him, are crazy for wanting to dig in people's mouths, spend hours and hours in someone's mouth, in dealing one-on-one with people. Like, Brandon wants to take over the world via technology, and that's him. What was Brandon like as a kid? He was always shy, but he was a beautiful, beautiful hearted human being. He would listen, he would look up to me, he would listen to me. I'd be like, Brandon, we're playing basketball. He'd be like, I don't want to, but he would still come out and play basketball with me. he's always been a person that is obviously younger than me, but I have looked up to because of how smart he is, how loving he is, and when he gets involved in something, he gives it his 100,000%. He's a brilliant, brilliant person. Just to give you a little story why maybe Brandon didn't get into dentistry as well. I don't think he was very excited about school, as I was not excited about school when we were younger. I think he took after me in that sense. So my father was like, okay, Brandon, you cannot not study in school. And this was in elementary school. You're going to not do well in school. If you don't study, you'll fail and you won't be able to become anybody. That was the mentality. That's the immigrant mentality, right? Brandon goes, I could do stocks. And my dad goes, what do you know about stocks? So my father had this brilliant idea. Let me give Brandon, I think it was like $1,000. I don't remember the exact number, but let me give Brandon a substantial amount of money. Brandon's going to invest in stocks because he thinks he knows stocks. He will lose it. He'll lose the money, and then he'll understand how hard it is to make money, work for money, and he'll want to work harder in school. What did Brandon know back at 17 years ago or 16 years ago? He knew Apple. He knew the Apple computer. He knew Google. He knew some of these terms that, obviously the bigger names. And he's like, okay, let me just try and invest in those things. Within a few months, Brandon was able to make money off of the money that was invested. He gave back my father the $1,000 that he lended. And my father goes, so what do you mean? What happens to the money? He goes, I made money. So I think I'm going to be doing stocks from now on. And that's what Brandon did. For several years after that, he was fully invested in portfolio and stocks and making money from that. He was doing always research. He did research of every single company he invested in, and he became smart about investing and understanding these new tech companies, because at the time, tech companies started to become the wave, and tech companies were the companies that were making the most amount of money. So he started to learn about that, about the VCs, funds, raising money, blah, blah, blah. And long and behold, that's where his niche is right now. We butted heads a little bit when he basically told me, he's like, I don't see myself going to grad school. I was like, Brandon, even if you go to grad school and don't use whatever you learn, you'll have a lot of benefits. I always wanted him, but that was just my selfish view in my mind. I was like, I see you. If you want to do business, do like a JD, MBA, dual degree, go to an Ivy League school. You'll have the backing of an Ivy League. You'll meet the most incredible people. And he's like, I don't need that. I'm good. I'm like, no, you're not good. Because I did that. So I figured if I did Ivy League and I built this rapport and education and so forth, then I want the best for my brother Brandon, and I want him to follow somewhat in my footsteps. A year goes by, he goes, okay, maybe I'll do it in a year. Maybe I'll do it in 2 years. After a few years went by and I realized that he really isn't going to be pursuing that, it needed to have this tough conversation and figuring out what he wants to do, where his vision at, because as a family, as a brother, older brother, I want to make sure my family is good, especially my brothers. Now that you guys have a little glimpse of my immediate family, I mean, my two most important role models, my grandparents, that's a whole different discussion. I would love to get into that, but that's a whole different discussion. But so now you have this whole family. Brandon, by the way, is still involved in this dental office. He's not a dentist per se, but he's the techie. He's the one that pushed me to get into social media early on. So he's a big part in it. There's all the times when we butt heads. When, let's say Dr. Jeff needs to do something, and then I have to tell my parents to tell him because he's being a little bit stubborn, or like, let's say Brandon needed to do something, he didn't do it. When you work with your family, it's the most beautiful thing, and it can be the most chaotic thing. It requires, and I've said this about Dr. Jeff, it requires a lot of work, patience, understanding. But at the end of the day, you will be butting heads. We butt heads, and we have to figure out how to get through that faster than holding grudges. The way that we make amends after we butt heads or get in a fight is we finish the day and we move on. We don't hold it against each other. We really move past it very quickly because we understand that we have a common goal here. It's to help people transform their life and their smile. And it does no justice for us to be not all on the same page. thank God for my mother, because I truly see her as the mediator in the family. Whether I get an argument with my father, or I get an argument with Dr. Jeff, or Dr. Jeff gets an argument with somebody else in our family, my mother is the one that will come in, slow down the pace of this aggression, maybe get some food involved, because that's a very Jewish thing to do, is to eat, because that's how you kind of get through everything, apparently. And she really puts us in a way that we, create peace in the family. There you have it. The Rubinshtein family, one crazy family who loves teeth, who loves working with each other. And we take every day as a blessing. We appreciate each other. And most importantly, we respect each other and love each other. And for those listeners that are tuning in to this podcast and listening to my voice, listening to the stories, I truly love you. I appreciate you. Many of you are my patients. I am so grateful to have you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for following. Thank you for subscribing. It makes a difference. It adds more fuel to my fire. And I'm looking forward to new episodes with new stories, with new people. And thank you so, so much. Dr. Daniel out. Thank you for listening. If you want to ask me a question, you could do it anonymously or include your name and I'll give you a shout out. To record your question, just go to speakpipe.com/Dr. Daniel from your phone or computer, and it's that easy. I love you guys. Thank you.